while they get ready, for those of you just coming in or arriving this morning or arrived real late last night, um, we are your MCs for this convention. I am Noe, and my wife, Ruby Lou Moraida. We're from the great state of Texas, and we're glad to be here. And we're going to go ahead and get started with the verse that we practiced last night.
I don't think they know, no.
Yeah, it's on page
No,
13.
no, this is mine.
Page 13 on your program booklets.
Spirit, come and lift up our hearts. Come, Holy Spirit, come and lift up our hearts.
As we begin today, we just want to remind everyone that today is a very special, blessed day. It is the feast of Our Lady of the Rosary. Keep that in mind today. And just about a few words about last night's program. I think it went very well overall for those of us who were present last night. I think the sharing of finding commonalities between and among ourselves went real well, very unique, very special. Then, of course, the game last night went real smoothly, all 4 rounds, and I think there was much excitement. Congratulations to the winning team again for getting those roles completed and done very fast. So again, thank you for that, and we're going to go ahead and continue with our program.
Good morning. Okay, let's be honest. How many of you got locked out last night? We didn't. Thank you, Millers. And thank us, right? No. We're excited to start off the day. We have a lot going on, a lot of talks, and so we're going to go ahead and get started with some announcements. We want to make sure that you see the schedule in your booklets and make sure that you've gone through it. Hopefully yesterday when we reminded you about it, that you flipped through all the items that needed to be covered. And also, of course, that your homework, which is on page 71, right? How to communicate Schoenstatt, that you're already thinking about that you're writing down some notes, because on Sunday, that's going to be what we're going to ask you to come up and discuss how your elevator speech is going to be. So don't forget about that, to go through it. And if anyone needs to pay, Luz Cano will be in the front desk after 2 p.m. If anyone still needs to pay for the convention, she will be there the whole afternoon, okay? Last night, some leaders requested online access to the presentation. Sergio and Sister Gabriela Maria have set up the system to make this possible. All diocesan coordinators and moderators will receive a link to access the presentation. Please make sure you forward that to your leaders so that they can view it if they would like to. It will be recorded as well. All right, so some of you were asking about that. Of course, the elevator speech for Sunday. Take time to review that. And we have I don't know if Mary's here. Is Mary here? Oh, yes, I can't see very well. We would like to present someone very special and very important to us, Miss Mary Higgins. She is the new administrator here at the Retreat Center, and we want to give her a warm welcome, and she will say a few words this morning.
Thank you all so much for the warm welcome. I need warmth. As these guys know, I tend to have the kitchen at Arctic, and so all the sisters always are like, "Is it a little cold in here?" So I am the new administrator for the Retreat Center, and it is my blessing beyond belief to be here. The good sisters were good enough to give me a position here. My background is scattered. I was in food service for many, many years of my life. So anyone who's been in the kitchen in the last 2 days has seen me like shuffling you all ahead. If you need anything, of course, just ask me and I'll find it in the refrigerator for you. But I have to just thank everyone so much that I'm allowed to be here. It is truly, truly my blessing. And I can't thank you enough. So, thank you.
Thank you so much to Ms. Mary Higgins. Everything is wonderful so far. We've been very pleased. She's even been able to accommodate some special needs for certain people that have special needs with their food, that don't eat on certain. No one? I'm not talking about anyone in particular. But anyways, we thank her for all her hard work and her team back there and all of you that have volunteered, which brings up, don't forget, if you haven't signed up, I don't know if we have enough people signed up, but I think we've got the list somewhere, and thank you for all those that have signed up. They are in the back. So if you have not signed up for a duty, please look through the sheets during a break, so that you can sign up for that. And now, oh yes, okay.
Before continuing with the program, if you all can look in your program booklets on page 16 and 17, I'm not going to read all of them, but this is an overview of Sursum Corda across the USA. These were done during the October Convention or Leaders Gathering held between 2022 and 2023. We had 25 dioceses actively participating and working with umbrella statement Sursum Corda. For example, the first one, New York, from the shrine in adoration with joy heavenwards. That's what they came up with. I'm going to go on to number 5 from Springfield, Illinois. Through the Immaculate Heart of Mary, Sacred Heart of Jesus, have mercy on me. Number 10 from Green Bay, Wisconsin. Lift up your hearts, expand the light of Schoenstatt through the presence of Jesus. Number 15 from Corpus Christi, Texas. Lift up your hearts. And number 20 on page 17 from Baker, Oregon. Lift up your hearts in unity with Mary. There was other states and areas that are listed there just for your information. And now, without any further ado, I want to present Mr. Ed Sanchez, who will briefly explain the survey results, and those begin on page 18.
Let's welcome Mr. Ed Sanchez.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. We want to take a quick shallow dive into the survey responses. As was mentioned, oh, by the way, I'm sorry. My name is Ed Sanchez. My wife, Terry, and I are leaders of the family branch here in the Archdiocese of Milwaukee. I want to ask you to turn to page 18, and we'll briefly go through these pages of the survey results. This was the 2023 survey. This is the 4th year that we've been doing the survey. We are getting to the point now where we can provide you year over year responses and comparisons across the year. So we've designed the survey so that the questions and the responses will be valid across multiple years so that we can get a sense of where things are moving in terms of in Schoenstatt in terms of those responses. We also have some open-ended questions that are asked that we have to calculate and we have to tag and present to you. So that's what we have been doing essentially with the survey for 4 years. We're looking forward to next year's survey because then we will provide those changes across the years. I'm not going to go into the results very much on 18. On page 19, again, you can see the events those that are offered multi or single day events, in person versus online events. That was very important because we started the survey in 2020, kind of in response to COVID, to try to get a sense for what was going on across the country in Schoenstatt. Again, the page 20, the parish presence, that's really important. So we're keeping an eye on that, and also how many have home shrines, how many have covenant of love, have made the covenant of love in the responses. What I'd really like to focus on in the 5 minutes that I've got left are those survey responses. And I want you to know that you've all been sent the survey emailed. Sergio emailed you the survey a few minutes ago, the full survey, and also some of the questions that I'm going to mention in a few minutes, some of the responses to the questions. On page 21, we have the survey responses for the 3 questions that we pulled out of the survey for you this year, which we think are kind of the main questions. Question 12, what God speaks to us through the large and small events of our time. What do we think he is trying to say to us now? And essentially, like I said, a lot of those responses, all of those responses were text-based. And so what we did was we went through and we coded the responses. We made word clouds to try to determine what they were trying to say. And then we read the surveys ourselves and read all the answers to kind of get a sense of what they were. We divided them up among the survey team. And what we came up with question 12 about God speaking to us and what is he trying to say to us was never give up, have perseverance, have mission zeal. There's strong commitment to the mission of Schoenstatt. Return to the essentials of the faith, to the sacraments, evangelize the youth, call to action, combat the forces of evil in society, prepare ourselves for that kind of a battle, spiritual battle. Focus on and strengthen families. This is what we do. Connect to God, Mary, and each other. So this idea of community is very important to the leaders in their responses, and Eucharistic devotion. Question 13, what are the deepest needs you hear being expressed by those in your area that may correspond to deeper spiritual needs? So this is, what were the survey respondents saying they're facing right now? And a lot of them were saying it's a time of tribulation, and we have a need for community. They don't feel welcomed, and they've not been fed. There's concern about protection and formation of youth. What are we handing on to our youth? There's need for emotional and spiritual healing. So for any variety of reasons, and then a desire to grow in faith. These are our main answers to question 13. Question 14, what does Schoenstatt have to offer to the world and church? It offers the opportunity to build a home, for a place to be anchored, the opportunity to live Catholicism as a way of life, a worldview, if you will. The idea to encounter our Mother Mary, not only in her fiat, but also at the cross. Fellowship with like-minded people, community. We all need each other and grow through each other and learn from each other. The covenant of love and the graces of the shrine. That personal relationship with Mary, that exchange of hearts with Mary is something that, whether we know it or not, we all desire deeply. Renewal, clarity, and communication. we all know that how far clarity goes in taking us off a drama triangle. Clarity is so important to us in Schoenstatt. Increase in faith and spirituality, the elements of Schoenstatt, the shrine, Mary, divine providence, and connecting with people through technology, podcasts. These are everywhere now. Catechism in the year, Bible in a year, Schoenstatt in a year is, where we need to go and what our leaders are asking us to focus on. So in just the few more minutes that I have, I want to take a long answer to each one of the questions, okay? And I'm also going to try something that is going to take me out of my comfort zone. Bear with me when we get to question 14 again. So, question 12, God speaks to us through the large and small events of our time. What do we think he's trying to say to us now? Full response. Particularly for young professional women, university women's groups, there is a deep thirst for authentic femininity in the midst of harsh feminism in our culture and attacks as to what women are. Women not only need a place to rest and be nourished, but also to be healed and walked with. Does that resonate with any of you, particularly women? If it does, could you raise your hand if it sort of resonates with you, or men? I found the long answers to be much richer, much more compelling. Here's the long answer to question 13. What are the deepest needs you hear being expressed by those in your area that may correspond to deeper spiritual needs? Here's the answer. The Eucharistic revival is striking to me. He seems to be, I'm assuming Pope Francis, seems to be inviting us to rediscover. No, it isn't Pope Francis, it's Christ himself. He seems to be inviting us to rediscover his intimate love for us as he is fully present in the Eucharist. He so desires us to be in relationship with him. It also seems there's a strong invitation for the protection of our children. They are suffering so much through abortion, human trafficking, emotional neglect, spiritual neglect, identity agendas, and families that find themselves too busy with work and going their separate ways most of the day. I believe there continues to be a clarion call for families to be renewed and to learn how to be lovingly present to their children. Yes. Question 14. What does Schoenstatt have to offer to the world and church today? And I know some of you prefer Spanish as your language, so I'm going to try to answer this one in the long form. Please bear with my poor Spanish. Schoenstatt ofrece una espiritualidad profundamente arraigada en la fe católica y en la devoción a María, la alianza de amor con María, los santuarios hogares, la formación integral de sus miembros pueden ayudar a las personas a encontrar una mayor conexión con Dios, una vida de fe más auténtica y una dedicación más profunda al servicio en el mundo. So, and I'll end with one final comment on what does Schoenstatt have to offer the world and church today. A home, a place where one is known and loved as one is, with invitation and helps to grow, should one freely accept it. A place to discover the path to interior freedom, deep surrender, and trust in divine providence within daily life in our current culture. Intimacy with God, our Father, and Mary, our Mother. A chance to become a child again in their hearts and to discover our true identity. A place where the family unit may rediscover how to live and love there as our Father created it to be. In rebuilding the family, it seems true that the church and the world is rebuilt. I just want to thank all of you who filled out this survey, and I am awed by the richness, the spiritualness, the goodness of your responses. And I think I'd like for you all to give yourselves a big hand, please.
Once again, a big round of applause for Mr. Ed Sanchez for all his hard work and the team that worked to put all of that together. It takes a lot of work and it takes a team. Thank you, Mr. Sanchez.
Before continuing, if we can have a show of hands, those of you that might need a headphones for translation, los que van a necesitar los headphones para que haga audífonos, para que haga la traducción en español, si levantan la mano, para que así las Sister Isabel les puede dar los audífonos, porque van a hacer las prácticas en inglés. Así pueden escuchar y entender un poquito mejor. Again, thank you, Mr. Ed Sanchez, for your information as you presented. Just a reminder that on page 22, I know that sometimes we're new and we're wanting to discover, all of the Schoenstatt shrines throughout the U.S. are listed. And then, of course, information regarding the Covenant of Love, the Schoenstatt Pilgrim Mother, information on page 23 and 24. And then the Schoenstatt commitment of all the states and locations that are listed, along with the presents on page 26 and the online on page 27. Okay. At 9:45, we will be having our first opening keynote address.
That's you first. That's you first.
Excuse me. Ruby, I thought that we were going to be talking more about Susan Corda. I was reading the schedule last night, and I noticed that only one presentation is called Susan Corda.
I noticed the same, but I was also thinking about it, and after listening to the survey results, I can see that the topics we'll be covering today are precisely our way to lift up our hearts. Actually, it's our way of lifting up the hearts of others.
You know, you're right. That's what we're all about as a movement. What good is it to know many things and not be able to point the way to heaven to our brothers and sisters?
I'm looking forward to what Father Cristobal has to tell us and to what Deacon Rojas will share in terms of the challenges we face in the church, in our world, and as a Schoenstatt family. We really need to start facing the many things that pull us down and ask the Blessed Mother to help us be a living Sursum Corda.
And now as I present Father Cristobal Asenjo, just a short bio on him. He was born and raised in Chile. He entered the Schoenstatt Fathers Novelet in 2024. He was ordained a priest in October of 2013 in Bella Vista, Chile. He worked for a short time as a youth moderator in Temuco, Chile. From 2014 to 2016, he was a youth moderator in Querétaro, Mexico. From 2017 to 2018, he was director of the Nuevo Buenas Shrine in Santiago, Chile, and the family branch moderator at the same shrine. He also served as a chaplain at San Jose de Chiricuro School. He was the Bethlehem Cradle of Sanctity Shrine in Austin since 2019 until September of 2023. He's the moderator of the Schoenstatt University Men in Austin, Texas from 2019 to 2022. He's also, since 22, he was a family branch moderator in Austin. And currently he's the National Movement Director and also moderator of the family branch in Washington and Dallas-Fort Worth. Without any further ado, Father Cristobal.
Well, good morning again. Good morning and welcome to our Delegates Convention of this 2023 at our International Schoenstatt Shrine here in Waukesha. For those visiting for the first time, this is a historical place. Even though the shrine wasn't built when Father Anthony was here, he visited the land and he was around, and we have a house where Father Anthony lived, so you can tour later around if you have some free time. We are here gathered together as leaders of our different Schoenstatt families in our nation. What it means to be leaders is not that we are telling everyone else what to do. It's not that we are giving directions to the people around us. It means that as leaders, we are serving the family that has been entrusted to us. We can be branch leaders, group leaders, or members of a core team, or someone who has an important responsibility in their local families. And again, being a leader means to serve the life that has been entrusted to us, to be there for those who needs us and for those who trust in our guidance. So, believe it or not, you have an important mission here. You have to bring back all that life that we're going to share here, and you have to bring also here the life of the branches and the families that you serve locally. So we have an important work to do, and we are leaders of our Schoenstatt family, and with our Schoenstatt family, we want to be leaders of the church. That is our ultimate mission, to serve the church as our Father invited us and as the Blessed Mother invites us. We have been inspired these last years by our umbrella statement, Sursum Corda, lift up our hearts. We have been bringing that life of the umbrella statement that has inspired the life of our local families. We have been working through the years with this motto and being inspired to look at what is God asking us to do, how we want to lift up our hearts, and how we locally want to lift up our hearts. We have a list of all the different approaches that the local families have and how we are making that a reality, how we are assuming that mission of bringing together that life and lifting our hearts together. So what we want to do now is to have a new impulse to renew that commitment and to keep working with that mission and with that statement of lifting up ourselves. Again, we come here as leaders, but first of all, we are Catholic leaders. We are Schoenstatters, but as Schoenstatters, we are, first of all, Catholics. And as Catholics, we want to serve the Catholic Church. And sometimes we have the tendency to forget that. We look inside our Schoenstatt family. If we have a shrine, we sometimes tend to live for our shrine and in our shrine, which is wonderful. But we need to remember that our shrines wants to inspire the church around us. And we as leaders have to be that living ferment in the church that needs us and invites us to work. So keep that in mind, that our mission is a universal mission. As in every different moment of human history, we have to give answers to different challenges that we face. So in order to be able to give those answers, we also need to know what we are and where we are. And it is important to acknowledge the circumstances that have given origin to the reality that we are living. That is why I want to bring some elements that happened several years ago. 75 years ago, as we were reminded yesterday, Father Anthony visited the United States for the first time in his life. And even though it was a short visit, only 3 months visiting the United States, he was able to be in several places around the country and having a glimpse of the culture living in the United States back in the day. His capacity of observation and his analytical skills gave him a clear perspective of the reality of our country and its people. And today, we want to bring back those elements that he was able to discover to shed some light that may help us to clarify who we are, where we're standing, what are the grounds that gives us the fundamentals of our United States culture and how that permeate our Schoenstatt United States Schoenstatt culture, and how from that perspective we can also give an answer to our times and to the world where we live at. First of all, Father Kenneth was impressed by the diversity of the culture that he experienced here. Because the United States, even though it's a nation with its own identity, it is a mix-up of many different cultures. As we have experienced these days, we mostly speak English, but we also have Spanish speakers. Here in the north, we have some German speakers. Down in the south, we have other languages in it. The United States is a mixed up of people coming from different places, people coming from different backgrounds. And even in our Schoenstatt family, we have people coming from South America, from other places of the world. And we have a variety that helps us understand, okay, Schoenstatt is, I don't want to say a mix-up, but a combination of different cultures, different approaches, and different perspectives. And we all want to bring our 2 cents. And sometimes we want to not only bring our 2 cents, but to impose it. We have to live according to what I live in my country. And we have to learn to be inspired by what we see from our brothers and sisters around and understand how we can work together with that. So that diversity that makes what we call America is what Father Kenton was able to experience, and that's what he saw. Back in the day was the expression to refer to that diversity in the United States, saying it is a melting pot. It is a melting pot where all the cultures are swimming in and getting together. But that description is a little bit too, diminishing the reality of the diversity of the United States. There's a lot of oh my gosh, I rehearsed this word several times, idiosyncrasies, there we go, all fusing and combining. But at the same time, by fusing and combining, they become a new whole thing that has no identity, it has no shape. And that's what Father Kenton said, I don't think the United States is just a melting pot. That is too, in his words, that's too, sorry, I forget the word and I missed my quote. That is too reductional, and it's not understanding that, too collectivistic. That is the word I was looking for. It's not understanding that we have our own identity, that every culture has something to bring in. So what he says about the United States culture, more than a melting pot, is he uses the image of a bell. If you have seen a big, beautiful bell that sounds with a beautiful sound and calling us to mass or to order or to different aspects, those beautiful and really beautiful sounding bells are made by different combined metals, but each metal is present in its own. It's not that they're fusing and becoming a new thing. Each metal is making something there to be present and to make the sound of that bell to be unique. And that is what he referred when he said the United States is that presence of different metals combined and making a new sound, not melting and confusing on their own, but being authentic, being original, being unique, and at the same time working together to make a new thing. And that is what he is inviting us to understand. The United States culture and the Schoenstatt United States culture that we want to build is not a melt, is a combination of the originality of each one of us, and that we want to bring to make part of that culture that we're building. So we are here this weekend again, coming from different places, bringing our originality, bringing the reality of our local families, the identity of the places where we come from our different states or nations. And we are bringing that here to make part of what we want to share. Those differences can't be a problem. those differences have to be the originality that has been given to each one of us by God, and that we have to make work here. And what binds us, what makes us be here together, and what gives us the identity is that we have a covenant of love. That covenant of love is what is essential to Schoenstatt, and that is what makes us be together. That covenant of love is what gives us the strength to say, no matter where I come from, no matter if I speak English well or not, no matter if they can fully understand everything I'm saying here or not, what makes us be together and beat with one united heart that we want to lift up is that covenant of love, that commitment with the Blessed Mother, that gift that we received when we sealed our covenant of love, that we gave her our hearts and we received her heart. And that's why we can all be together and we can work together to embrace those differences and to understand that we are doing one single task all together. When Father Kentenich came 75 years ago, he wrote a document. It's a short booklet called the America Report that gives us a glimpse of what he experienced from the United States. Even though those words were written 75 years ago, they're still alive today. Many of the things that he said are still present in the United States culture. Maybe the big exception, when he was writing those words, he was saying half of the population of the United States is Christian, and half of those Christians are Catholic. Unfortunately, today we have to say less than half of the population of the United States is Christian, and way less than half of those Christians are Catholic. Father Mark was mentioning this morning how being a Catholic has been disappearing, and that feeling of belonging to a church, that feeling of understanding how we are bounded together by our beliefs has been disappearing. So our task now, our duty, is to bring back that reality and that need of becoming together, of understanding that we have a mission, that we belong somewhere, and that we belong to the church that is inviting us to be renewed. And it's our task, again, as a renewal movement for the United States Church and the Universal Church, to bring the life and the experience of being a Catholic, of being someone who believes in God together. Being that said, I want to present now the 4 elements that are essential to Father Kentenich's writing and that helps us to describe, this is a picture, it's not the crude reality, but gives us a good image of how the United States behave and how we live our culture and how we are challenged to give answers to those aspects. I'm going to mention first the 4 topics, and then I will go one by one. First of all, he talks about an inclination toward the practical and vital. I will go deeper soon. The second element that he mentioned is an inclination toward things of the senses. A third element, an inclination toward this worldliness. And the fourth aspect, an inclination in overconfidence in self. So the first element, an inclination toward the practical and vital. What does it mean, that being too oriented toward the practical and vital? He helps us to understand that comes from the origins of this nation. When the pioneers came to this land, they had to develop technologies that may help them to make it productive. They were working hard in this new land that they found, that they came into, to make it productive, to make a living. So that inspired them and required from them to develop new technologies, new ways of making this land productive. And they were very efficient on that. And they were making it a very rich, productive land. And they were growing and they were getting better and they were progressing. So that is amazing. It's something that we have to thank to the first people to came to this land, not those who were here originally, but those who came from afar to make it a new place to live and to survive. And their effort and capacities were fruitful, and that allowed them to make huge progresses. That accentuated consciousness of learning how to keep trusting and finding practical solutions, and at the same time to forge a spirit of effort and hard work to acquire progress and benefits is what makes maybe the most essential reality of the United States, a country that has people that is able to develop creative answers, to develop new technologies to help us make our life easier and more productive. That is why today, being a blue-collar worker is a well-paid position and something that we see with proud. And we say, okay, the people are workers. Those who work in manufacturing, those who work in essential duties are so important for the progress of the nation. It is not only that we need to be good thinkers, not only that we need to be intellectuals, but also we are people who work with their hands and know how to do things. It's interesting to see how in almost every garage, in every house, you can see a workshop where people is fixing their vacuums or doing new things and working with their hands. That is part of the culture of the United States, being practical in solving problems. So that is something that encourages the technical and practical skills of our people here. As a result, technology has become something always present in every home in the US. The access to it, making our lives easier, is a must. For those of us coming from abroad, it is impressive sometimes to walk into a house and to see there's a dishwasher machine, there's a mixer, there's a machine to cut vegetables, to make everything, and we have solutions for everything. And in some countries, we don't see those advantages, and we look at and wow, it's impressive. I don't know, coming from South America or other countries where you used to have people sometimes helping us at home, and here you have to do everything on your own. So we have vacuums cleaning on their own, we have dishwashers making the work, we have stoves or ovens that turn on its own and make all the duty to help us. And that is important, that is impressive. But at the same time, we can become dependent of those things. And when we don't have them, the world is over. We don't have power, as it happened in Texas a couple of winters ago. We were not able to do anything. We have no water, no power, and now we're going to die. So those advantages makes us to have an easier life, but at the same time, we can be too used to have all those advantages and not being able to survive. Personal experience. I was working on this talk, and I was rereading and fixing it and trying to perfect it, as it never happens. And suddenly, my iPad crashed, and I lost all the work that I had. And there I was. All that I fixed is gone. So I have to keep working again. And that is for us relying in technology and thinking, backups maybe, hard copies maybe, learning experience. The positive side of this technology development is that it gives us also a firm attached to earth, a willingness and an ability to solve problems with creativity, and maybe in the origins of the country. And it's even written in the Constitution of the United States. Every man and woman has access to land, and every man and woman are created equal, and all have access in equal ranges to what we have. Is that a reality or not? That's something to discern and to think about, is that for real, everyone has access to all the advantages. We may say yes, we may say no. We can discuss it later in our groups, and we can see how we can work for that to be a reality. So it has forged on the spiritual life perspective a certain, not infrequent, naive, childlike character. Those are Father Catholic words. What does he mean when he says that this childlike, naive character is being an essential description of the United States spirit? That we trust and we believe that things are solved, and we naively sometimes trust in the technology that we have. And when it doesn't work, we are crushed. And when it doesn't happen, we are kind of in a place of confusion. At the same time, we trust and believe so much in the solutions that has been given us that we don't question them. We don't look at them and we don't think, so is it real or not? We just simply say, okay, it's dogma, so I will follow that. And in the spiritual life of the United States, that's what Father Catholic says, looking from a German perspective, that is super critical culture, that sometimes in the United States, we assume everything in our spiritual life, in our formal life, saying, okay, that's the way things are, so we have to follow, and we don't access to question things going around. It has been impressive for me coming from outside of the United States to meet so many young people saying, especially in confession or spiritual direction, I'm doubting about my faith, I'm questioning my faith, and I have these big concerns about it. And that's making me feel that I'm wrong. And I'm coming to confession to ask for the Lord to forgive me for doubting on the things that I have to trust or believe. And I looked at them and I was like, good, keep working on that. Keep doubting, keep questioning. And I was like, Father, yeah, keep questioning yourself. Keep asking yourself, why am I a Catholic? Why do I believe the things I believe? Why do I go to church? Why do I pray what I pray? You need to question yourself. You need to ask yourself, why am I living in this way? And not simply go forward and keep doing things the way they have been done always. We don't have to pray as we were taught and just repeat that. We need to think about what we're doing. We cannot just go and say, I believe in God. Why do you believe in God? I don't know, because I was taught to do that. That's something that we need to question on ourselves. I was talking to a friend of mine who's from the Netherlands, who became a Catholic 25 years ago. He's a married man, he has children, and he was telling me, last weekend I was celebrating my baptism anniversary, and people was asking me, why are you doing that? And I told him, well, it's impressive that you remember that date, and it's amazing that you are happy to say how God changed your life and all that came after that, your marriage, your kids, your faith, the way you live, your Catholic faith. And he said, yeah, and nobody was paying attention to that. No one was surprised about that. And I'm thinking, yeah, that is part of our nature. We were born and raised Catholic, most of us here, and we don't question that. We simply assume that's the way life is. But for someone who converted himself and became a Catholic, it is important to understand and to remember my life was different, and I was called by the Lord to live in a different way. And I questioned myself and I questioned my life, and that gave me the answer to think that is why I'm here today. So that's something that Father Cristobal says from his critical experience and point of view. That is something that maybe people here in the United States needs to learn, to question the things we do. Why do we have a covenant of love? Why do we want to change the world? Why Schoenstatt has been an answer for our lives? Because we have been called by God to do something new. And that's what we need to think about. And that's what we need to keep discerning about. We cannot just simply go with everyone as sheep. We need to stop, think, and then keep going and inviting people around us to transform their lives. The second point that Father Cristobal mentions, an inclination toward things of the senses. It doesn't mean sensuality, but being sentient. It means using our senses, what we see, what we hear, what we touch. We are inclined to follow what we are feeling around us, what we are experiencing around us. He was saying this 75 years ago, and he was quoting how newspapers and broadcasting was full of information. Today, he would be fully surprised. We have these little things in our pockets that has everything we need. And we open them and we're looking for one answer, and we have found 1,000. And we click on one link and 1,000 more videos are coming. We are surrounded and overwhelmed by information. And that information is coming whether we like it or not. We walk on the streets and we are driving on the highway, and we have signs all over around giving us a lot of information. Buy this, call this lawyer. If you got injuries, do this and that, and get your insurance. And oh my gosh, it's a lot. And how do we process that information? How do we take a time to look at all of those things and to say, what is that I need and not? How do we discern? We are always surrounded by these overabundant stimuli that are distracting us. We become dependent on them, and we need them constantly in our life. So how do we make our brains to break out of those things? We are being constantly bombarded, and there is no room for interaction one-on-one. How many times happens that even in our same household, we're texting each other instead of knocking on a door, say, hey, I need to talk to you, or I need to ask you something, or how are you? Or, hey, dinner's ready, come with me, and let's go together to have dinner. So it's easier to, hey, dinner's ready on the countertop, come and get something. We're losing that one-on-one connection, that one-on-one interaction. And that is what's happening every single day more. We have, I don't know if you have seen, but I was impressed. I was in a house a few weeks ago, and they had a fridge that had like a screen on it, like an iPad or a tablet. and someone rang the bell on the front door, and boom, someone's ringing at your door, and that was on the fridge. It's like, come on, it's too much. Go and open the door and say, hey, welcome. Real one-on-one interaction. At the same time, we are so connected to the practical world that it gives us a positive outcome. We can appeal to the senses, and we can call people to do things. We can send information about, hey, we have the leaders convention, or now maybe some people is connected on Zoom or YouTube seeing what we're doing here up in Waukesha, and maybe people in the South or somewhere else, even abroad, is receiving this information, and that is useful. But again, isn't it too much? What happened during COVID? We were glad to have online masses, but we got used to have masses online. So it's easy to be in the comfortness of my couch in my living room to watch the mass. And believe me, I heard that several times, people saying, oh yeah, I put the homily of the priest of the pre-recorded mass in 1.5x or 2x because it's faster and it gives me more time to do my chores. Or I put my crock pot to cook while I'm attending mass and I'm taking care of several chores at the same time. We should be concentrated. If we're at mass, we're at mass. We're not everywhere else. Or we can take meetings on our car ride while we are moving and commuting somewhere else, but we're not fully present there. We need to be for real present. So we need to take care of, do not be so dependent of that invasion of our senses. We need to fully be committed in the things we're doing. We need to be real present. So it is something to be careful, something that we need to pay attention to, and we need to understand what's going on with our brothers and sisters around, because we have too much information. We are surrounded and overwhelmed by too much things going on, so that we can get distracted, or that overwhelmed that we become numb. We stop feeling, we stop understanding, we stop listening because it's too much noise and I can discern what is real or not. Something to, again, think and discern. It's urgent, therefore, to help our society to reconnect with those senses, to make room for what is transcendental and for what is important, and to be able to discern what we have or not to receive, what we have to pay attention or let go, and to remember that not everything has to come from outside. It is important to pay attention to what is going in our souls. That is a conclusion of this second point, what Father Cristobal is calling us, to look inside our hearts and to understand what is happening inside of me, and not only what I am perceiving from around me. The third point that Father Cristobal mentions in his writing is an inclination toward this worldliness. We are too attached to this physical reality that we have around us. I don't want to become super philosophical because I'm not a philosopher, but he's talking about the physics of our lives, but he's also inviting us to go into the metaphysics, what is beyond what we can see, what is beyond what we can experience. This point comes as a natural consequence of the inclination to practical. Because of the good results of the technical developments, it's easy to get caught in the good things that we experience in our daily life, leaving aside the most transcendental aspects of our lives. It means that we lose our attachment and connection with God and with our spirituality. We are too attached to the material things. We are too used to this technology that helps us and allows us to live our lives. But we forget to connect with the transcendental, with what is for real important. Because of our progress, it is tempting to think that everything is already solved, or that soon there will be a solution. Again, when we need an answer, when we need something, when we need to cook something, personal experience, we go on Google and we find all the answers that we're looking for. And we forget to ask someone around us. When we need to solve a spiritual problem, instead of going to a shrine or to our home shrine, instead of remembering our covenant of love, we look for solutions online. We look for something that is already solved because we think there's answers for everything. There's no answers for everything. We need to keep giving answers to all the problems of our times. We cannot pretend that everything is done. We need to keep doing. We need to keep working. If we think that everything is solved, and if we entrust every answer to ChatGPT or any other AI solution, we are losing our identity. We are losing our humanity. Those are tools that helps us, But don't forget that we have the capacity of thinking and critically thinking. We live as if all that matters is what we can get in the material world, and we get totally disconnected from the ultimate and most transcendental aspects of our spirituality. We are so attached to the good things that we have, to the beautiful car, the beautiful house, the wonderful heating, or the amazing AC that we have, and we forget that there are more transcendental things, that there's love, that there's personal interaction, that there's one-on-one interaction, and our relationship with God may simply become a transactional giving and receiving. I give God something, so he has to give me something in exchange. I ask for something, and I expect for him to give me what I want, as we are used to. I pay for a service, and I get the service that I expect. And if I don't get what I was looking for, I complain, and I become someone who's complaining all the time, saying, oh no, I paid for something, and I didn't receive what I was looking for. And sometimes people come to church too. God is not giving me what I'm asking for. I go and pray, and I say to the Lord, I need this and this and that, and he is not answering to me. Are you paying attention to God for real? Are you listening to what the Lord is asking you to hear? Are you being free enough to trust in divine providence and to say, I may think that what I need is this and that, but God is saying me, you need the opposite, or you need something else, or you are asking for something that is not that important, and you're not paying attention to what I am inviting you to live and to experience in your life. We got lost, we got caught many times in practical solutions, that we forget that our faith and our spirituality is not only practical faith, but in divine providence, trusting in divine providence, in God's guidance for our lives. So we lose the ability to comprehend how God has a perfect plan that we cannot comprehend, or even worse, manipulate. We cannot tell God what to do. We have to do what God is asking us to do. And that is a big challenge of being a Catholic. That is a big challenge of living our freedom, of understanding freedom, but freedom to do what God is asking us to do. Freedom to choose what God is inviting us to do. The fourth point that Father Kendrick mentions is an inclination in overconfidence in self. Kind of complicated, so I will repeat it. An inclination in overconfidence in self. What does it mean? It can be perceived as a limitation in our spiritual development again. The history of this nation, the progress acquired because of technical progress, the economical success after 2 big wars, the position of the United States in the global context can give us the perception that we do not need anything else or anyone else around us, that we are self-sufficient, that we are able to solve everything on our own. It's kind of true and not. We, again, need a global context. We cannot pretend to be the center of the universe. We have to understand that we need one another, that we need that interaction, that we need to be connected with the people around us. It can lead us to the risk of being pretty respectful when we are listening to someone around us, and that's something that is really surprising from the American culture. Americans pay a lot of attention to what you're saying. They listen to you carefully. They even nod when you're talking, yeah, I see, thank you. And then things may go out and not process anything at all. Because, okay, you're saying a lot, but I know the answer. I have everything that I need, so thank you for your opinion, but I don't care. We need to be careful with that. We need to pay attention to what's going on around, and especially if we're looking for advice or not. We need to receive that advice, and we need to process what we're listening. We need to try to understand, and we need to say, maybe I should stop and meditate and disconnect from the surrounding problems and disconnect from my technology and disconnect from myself to kind of understand what have been said, what I have been listening to. And maybe understand that even though I know the answer, someone else can give me a different perspective. And maybe even though I know how to follow the rules, I have to critically listen and pay attention and read and reread what's happening and think, okay, what is going on? What am I receiving? And how can that be useful in my life? So we need to be careful, again, of not being too respectful, of saying, okay, I pay a lot of attention to what you're saying. Father Cristobal was talking for 30 minutes in front, and he said a lot of things, but I know the answers. I'm not paying attention to anything that's what he's saying. Hopefully not. At the same time, since we're not paying attention, we're not integrating the new things that are happening and coming to my life. So Father Kentenich gave us those 4 aspects. That is a picture of the United States people idiosyncrasy. And it's maybe a world perspective now, in a global world. So now what is the big question? Where do we go from here? Okay, thank you, Father, for giving us that not friendly glimpse of who we are, that perception of, oh my gosh, do you like us or not? I like you a lot. So now what? Now what do we do? Where do we go? That is a good question. That is an important and essential question. It's the same question that the Schoenstatt family made to itself after the 100th anniversary of the Covenant of Love. On that celebration in Germany in 2014, a lot of people went there and were celebrating there or in our local shrines and families the 100 years of the Covenant of Love, that groundbreaking moment that changed our lives, that groundbreaking moment in which Father Kentenich, talking to a little group of young minor seminarians, invited them to give the Blessed Mother an abode at the shrine and to give her their hearts and to receive her heart in exchange and to say, okay, from now on, we can and have and must change the world. And we together need to give an answer. And was the realization of saying, hey, we're celebrating 100 years of that moment. And now what? What do we do? Because of that, one of the consequences was that the international Schoenstatt movement decided from now on, we need to gather every certain amount of years and discern together the voices of the self, time, and the world, and to look into our hearts and to think, what are we doing? The first answer that came out of that was we need to go to the world. We have been growing for 100 years inside. We have been looking to ourselves too much. We have been hunting our covenant of love and our structure and federativity as Schoenstatt family and Schoenstatt movement. And now we need to look to the world and to think, what is the world expecting from us? And that moved us to say, we need to go. We need a Schoenstatt on the move. We need to go and we need to transform the world as it is our mission. We have to work for the church and with the church, and then we have to make those changes that the world needs. So from that was born the idea of having the Pentecost Congress. I think that is an international gathering that some of us, being a little bit critical, may say, oh, it's a group of Schoenstatt people gathered together, writing a document and saying some things that are not making sense for many of us. And that is not the way in which we have to receive those documents. We need to think, okay, those are our representatives, our leaders gathering, thinking and praying and discerning for all of us and representing all of us and inviting us to read those documents, and not only to read, not only to receive that information and to say thank you in a polite way, but to be critical about the document and to read the document and to think, okay, so now what do we do? And that is what, again, gave us the perspective of saying, let's go out, let's go to the world, let's have that Schoenstatt on the move to give some real answers. And is also the natural consequence of desiring to make our movement to go somewhere else where we are needed. And also paying attention to the times and to the voices of the church. Pope Francis was inviting us to leave our comfort zone, to move out of our positions. I remember in Krakow, he was telling to the young people, get off your couches, put on your sneakers, and go into the world. And for a Schoenstatt family, it's the same thing. We need to go somewhere else. We need to give answers to the world. So on 2022, after-ish, the pandemic, was the second Pentecost Congress. The first one was a few months after 2014, year after 2014, the centennial anniversary. And then the second Pentecost Congress was on 2022 in Schoenstatt, in Germany. And there were a lot of speakers and people presenting, and Father Alexandre Awi-Melo, now the Schoenstatt Father's General Superior, gave a talk where he presented 10 points that you can find on page 67 of your booklet, so you can follow with me. And it's not the ultimate answer, but it's a good clarification and a good way of understanding how can Schoenstatt give something to the church? How can Schoenstatt do something? So we have this chart on page 67 that has two columns. On the left, it says, what does the church in the present time teach us and or need from us? And how can Schoenstatt answer to that? He presented 10 points, being the first, apostolate. Second, childlikeness and father-oriented. Third, Marian. Fourth, covenant. The fifth, lay character. Sixth, everyday sanctity. The seventh point, education of the personality and community, youth and family. The eighth one, a practical faith in divine providence. The ninth, shrines and popular devotion, pilgrim movement. And the last one, federative structure. So if we read those points, it's like, what are you talking about, Father? You're confusing us. So on the chart on page 67 are the questions and the answers. What does the church and the present time teach us and needs from us? The call for a church on the move, a commitment with the world in missionary conversion, the choice for the poor and marginalized, social concern and existential peripheries. How do we answer? From our apostolate, an apostolic movement, missionary spirit, the grace of apostolic fruitfulness, the mission and consciousness, the Pilgrim Mother as a great answer for our times, and the outreach that Joe Apostolon, the founder of the Pilgrim Mother Apostolate, had. For the second point, is a great importance of humility and simplicity and transparency required from our church. Great attention to the abuse crisis, the great necessity to accompany people and their processes. How can we answer from Schoenstatt? With childlikeness and fatherliness. We need to understand our mission as secondary causes, the law of organic transference and transmission, the spiritual accompaniment, the pedagogy of movement, the trust and freedom. Those are the answers that Schoenstatt can give to those needs of the church. The call for a merciful, welcoming, open church, the revolution of tenderness that Pope Francis invites us to have, that Marian church, that warning against the Neo-Pelagianism, means heresies. And the Marian element that we can give and offer from Schoenstatt is the covenant of love, the Marian instrumental piety, the covenant of grace, the self-education. Those things we have listened in Schoenstatt for several years while we have been formed, and those are answers that we can and have to give to the church. On the fourth question from the church, there's a search for spirituality. There's a warning against spiritual worldliness and individualism. Again, what we were listening to, what Father Kentenich saw in our American church and reality. So what is the Schoenstatt answer to that? A spiritual, Marian, patrocentric spirituality, a Christological orientation, our strong piety of faith lived in community. That is maybe one of the most beautiful things that Schoenstatt has to give to our church, the sense of community, the sense of family. We are here because we care for one another. We are here to work together one with another. And that is what the church is calling us to give. That is what many people experiences in our shrines. They go to a shrine for the first time and they are impressed by the sense of community, the sense of family. Many people that come to our shrines for the first time and they say, I came here as a pilgrim, knowing no one, and I felt so welcome. I felt so at home, and everybody wanted to know who I was and where I was coming from and why was I here, not to make statistics, but to invite me to become part of this family. And that is a gift that we have to give to a church. There is an importance of the laity that the church is claiming for. There's an absence of Christian principles and people in politics, in economics, in pedagogy. And there's a need of contribution of women, what we were saying in the survey. There's a new feminism that is needed in the church. We have the examples of the economy of Francis, the Global Education Pact, and the need for more leadership. How can we answer that from Schoenstatt? The laity and the new social order. Schoenstatt is a lay movement. We moderators, we consecrated are here to inspire, to help. We're here giving talks, but it should be you giving talks and giving answers to the world. It should be you, the laity, being formed, giving the answers that the world is looking for. That's why we are forming our laity. That's why we are forming our families and our youth. That's why we need to live in a spirituality of pedagogy and understanding the importance of women, of the male and female relationship, of a covenant culture that is guiding and inspiring our lives. Another challenge from the church: the world and the work life gives us big challenges in business, in trade unions. There's social inequality and problems with ecology that we need to address. How do we answer from Schoenstatt with our everyday holiness? We are working for our everyday sanctity, and that is a connection to God, to oneself and to another, to those around us, to work together and to think together for the needs of the world. Young people and families, that was the church is craving for. Those have been the topics of the last synods, the challenges facing how to address young people, how to invite them to come back to church. There's crisis in the families, there's defamiliarization of society. What do we bring back? We live the family and youth pedagogy. We bring the home shrine as a place where we can bring the church back at home as a place of education. We need and we have the opportunity to teach and form our people in affectivity and sexuality, in programs, in projects, in family academy. We have a lot of new projects going around in Schoenstatt, around the world, that can give us an answer, and we have to learn about that. The church is inviting us to have a dialogue and to listen to one another. We trust and we believe in the practical faith in divine providence, and that is an answer that we can give to the world. If we are able to work through that and experience that, we can help the world to give an answer, to find an answer there. There's a need of rediscovering the evangelical potential of piety and popular culture. Again, our shrine, our pastoral, open to everyone, the apostolate of the Blessed Mother, reaching every corner of the church, not only the intellectual circles, not only those who are formed, but reaching everyone. That is what we have to do. That is what we can do from Schoenstatt, from our hearts. The synodality and the ecumenism, there's a church for universal brotherhood in the church. There is a need of communication. There is a need of understanding that we are together. It's not one against another. It's one with another. When we call ourselves Catholics, we're saying we're Christian. So we cannot be fighting all the time against those heretic, separated brothers. No, we need to work together. We are called to understand that in our federative structure, in Schoenstatt, we can also give answers to the federativity of Christianhood, and understanding that if we work together with those who think differently, we are making great progress, instead of saying, oh no, you're different to me, so you are outcast of my life. No, we need to work with one another. These 10 points is kind of a little bit dry and big, but it's a good opportunity to understand and to think how, from the perspectives that we have from our society and the challenges that we see from our church, how can we answer? How, from our covenant of love, how, lifting up our hearts here together, understanding that we are united in that covenant of love, we can give an answer to the world. Many of these topics we can see also reflected in the survey that was presented before. And again, it's the question of how we work on that. And that is why we're here. That's why we came here this weekend, to share, to work, to workshop together, to understand and to try to at least start finding the answers that the church and the time and the world needs from us. Thank you.
Wow, that was amazing. A wonderful keynote by Father Cristobal. Thank you so much, Father Cristobal, for all of those words, that beautiful talk. When you spoke about the things of the senses, it reminded me, and I won't speak long because I know we're on a time schedule, of the importance of silence. Because when he was talking about the things of the senses, how we're overwhelmed by information that's around us. Noe and I are in Family Federation, and one of the things that was brought up to us during these retreats is the importance of silence, silencing our hearts, silencing ourselves. And at first, I was not very, I guess, wanting to do that. But then when I learned or I experienced it, and Sister Danielle Peters, who was our moderator for our retreats, I fell in love and I learned more deeply the importance of silence. And now my husband and I, we do that in the mornings because we used to turn on the television and have Good Morning America and everything that was happening, good and bad. And so much information was feeding into us that was not good, was bringing us down. But we had silence and we had an opportunity to pray before everyone else woke up. Our puppies started needing us and, just the rat race of the world. But thank you so much. Just wanted to share that.
Before going on break in just a few minutes, we want to go ahead and count off so that once we resume, we can begin the different talks. Group 1 will be in the back, to my right, to your left. Group 2 will be here in the center. Group 3 will be over here by the music section on the circle. Group 4 to my left, to your right, up in the front. 5, the next group of chairs. 6, and then 7 there in the back. So we want to number off by 7, and we can go ahead and start. 1, 4. as commonality information that was shared in your groups during your 15-minute assignment. We're going to ask you all to go ahead and come back here to the center to your chairs. And then that one person you selected will stand up and share what your group discussed. Okay? That'll make it easier on the person operating the camera.
So if everyone could just pick someone from your group that's going to speak, and then we just need everyone to go ahead and come back to the center area. That way, we can get started with that. Since we are on a live feed, we're needing to move everyone back to the center. It'll be easier for the technical part of the program.
And I think it would be easier for those watching remotely. Whoever is speaking, report from whatever group number you were in, for example, group 1, group 7, and state your name and what was discussed among your group as common information, key points that you want to share. Thank you.
Once we are all settled in, we will get started, and we will start with, if someone wants to volunteer for their group, we would take that. If not, we will go. What group are you? Okay, we already have a volunteer for group 1 in a bit. Let's have everyone settle in. Once everyone settles in, we'll start with group 1. We already have our first group wanting to discuss what they shared and what they learned. We have so much that information that is coming out that we want to share with everyone and our interpretations.
As I walked around just kind of trying to listen in, I heard several key points that were being shared, some information, and then, of course, interaction from those around the person that was speaking in that group at that time. So again, thank you so much for your participation.
So we have our first group 1. You want to go ahead and come on up, and she will say her name and then discuss what they discussed in their group.
Okay, Michelle Chambers with group number 1. Just initial, the message that struck some individuals. The first was that Father's message was rooted in the practical, that every house needs to have the presence of Our Lady and rooted in the Holy Spirit. Another said that the thing that struck her was, don't keep doing things the way that they've always been done. Is it still effective? Is it still beneficial? Is it still bearing fruit? We talked a lot about technology, that it's a good thing if it's used well, but we can rely too much on it. However, short messages, because especially for young people, their attention span has been trained to be short. So anything over 5 minutes, they'll just scroll right past, but can be used to counteract some of the messages. We talked about, for the infirm or homebound, this is a good way that they can still participate in the movement. For someone who's just scrolling and searching, a Google search is meant for something very specific. Tell me about X, but it doesn't really say how do I form a relationship? How do I get to know Jesus? They don't have an answer for that. But if Schoenstatt can, again, use that effectively, that it can be something that, one lady mentioned that they did a rosary campaign, and they just put it out to the general public for a response. They had over 200 people that came. That's a way we can get to people who don't know who we are, and yet they can be exposed to it, and then to say, okay, in your area, here's where we have things, but it can be an initial entry. So that's what we talked about.
Thank you. That was group
Thank you.
1. Group 1. Do we have any other volunteers, or if not, we'll just go down the line? Group 2? Okay, group 2. We have someone from group 2 that's going to share.
Miguel Crespo, group 2. Our conversation got a little deep, so I've just made some bullet points here. So we spoke of the dangers that misinformation and information that is controlled, how it's being funneled through both media and social media. The homogeneity of the masses can kind of destroy that. What came to mind during the talk was like, we are like this bell choir, right, of individuals. So the homogeneity of masses can destroy this bell choir that Father speaks of, and that we are in danger of believing the groupthink, right, and losing our individuality because of the technology and how things are funneled through. So we're in danger of losing our own contributions and our own thinking. The culture follows the senses, like the feeling, I feel this and feel that, but they're not always logically thinking things through. Young people, we started talking about the youth, young people easily get caught up in the senses and do not get involved with solutions because the issues are not yet affecting them, right? It's like, not my problem. So someone else chimed in and said Schoenstatt, they saw Schoenstatt as that bell choir and not the melting pot. And we come from different cultures, or because we come from different cultures and languages, but we are all working towards the same goal, which is the family. And our contributions and opinions do matter. And I think that's what Schoenstatt is, right? A place where we can share those contributions. And then we have a voice, right? As individuals in Schoenstatt, we have a voice. And secular society can sometimes treat us indifferently, right? When we're in the world, because of our Schoenstatt worldviews. And then sister and one other individual said that inscriptio seems to be the solution, right? In other words, a willingness to suffer with Christ and an attitude of my soul to accept in my heart what God is sending me to face.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. That was wonderful. We could have someone, a representative from Group 3.
Susana Crespo, Group 3. We shared about how being a leader is serving and serving with unity, that we are set apart from the world, what we want to bring forth. Schoenstatt is the heart, someone shared, and brought up how Father Kentenach's writings and bringing forth the covenant of love was important. And then it was shared on page 32, the quote of the power of love, that is our mission, and how that can bring us to interior transformation. It's difficult to know what is love in our noisy world. Silence is important to learn what love is. We don't have a mission without love, and how the Blessed Mother doesn't take away from her son. Then it was brought out that from a man's perspective, that the important role of women to help restore the relationships of love. And men have to learn the power of love. When we were created with male and female tensions. And the tendency of wanting to fix things, but discovering that we have to give those things that need fixing to her. Schoenstatt has that to offer, bringing people to her. So we cannot do and always fight these battles on our own. So sometimes the greatest things that we can do, or the greatest service we can do, is listening and intercessory prayer.
Thank you so much. Yes, listening is very important. If we could have a representative from Group 4? Wonderful.
My name is Steve Walters. Minneapolis, St. Paul is where I'm from. Group 4, we actually kind of just, our focus really ended up just being the sharing of our general impressions of what we were getting from the talk, and trying to put them together into some form of a statement or a theme here. The first one really is that being Catholic is fading away. It's really not a popular thing to do anymore. At the same time, not really necessarily clear what God is calling or wanting from individuals. So those are like the two challenges that people were catching. And then after that, then some of the items were, Schoenstatt's a good way to respond. It offers many tools for our benefit. And some of those tools are being silent, becoming aware of what we're doing, and at just times just not doing anything. And then gifts that we receive from that are different tasks and instruments that God wants us to give to the world. And then if we're doing that, we're fulfilling what God has in mind. And we should start small and grow larger.
Thank you. Group 5. Uh-oh. Cheerleaders over there.
Yeah, we have a team. So one of the things that we discussed was that the diversity in Schoenstatt is one of the very positive things we have. And we noticed that in our groups, how even though we're all so different, we don't experience much discord as we plan things and as we, try to move forward in our areas and things. It's one of the big gifts that we're able to be diverse, but focus on the positive of all these different things. So that is one of Schoenstatt's gifts. We also talked about the overload that is in the media and how it's changed our lives dramatically, but how we need to choose the silence, which was mentioned, that we definitely need to choose that in order to be in contact with our Lord and God to guide us and change us and make us grow deeper in love with Him so that we can be love for the people around us. And then we talked about critical thinking, and Fabio, by the way, I'm Carol Fabio from Indiana. And you are?
And I'm Fabio Bernardon from Austin, Texas.
And so the critical thinking you had with yours.
Yeah, so one thing that I think, spent quite a bit of time on was talking about understanding and how everybody requires a different amount of time to come to understanding different topics, right? And then I told the story of my son. My son, when he was younger, he told me and my wife that he didn't believe in God. He said, I can't understand God, so I don't believe in Him. And instead of telling him, no, you have to believe God, I said, okay, that's fine. With time, you're going to understand Him. And time was going by. He, started thinking about his classes. He picked up an interest about the universe, the planets, stars, all of those things. And we were talking one day and going through, and he said, and then everything started with the Big Bang. And I told him, and what came before the Big Bang? And he was like, what do you mean? I said, well, there was a point in time where nothing existed, and then there was a point in time where everything existed. What is that? Where did that come from? At that point, he looked at me and said, oh, Dad, now I understand God. Right? So, yeah, it's good. And he has been working through that, and it comes from that, give him the time. Let's not push him. He has his way of thinking. Everybody has their way of thinking. We spoke about that, with regards to the larger society as well. What we feel that happens today is whenever a question comes to somebody, you have to give an answer right away, right? And we think, no, you don't have to give an answer right now, right? You want to be a part of this movement, you don't have to say yes or no. Take your time, look at it, see what we do. If you like it, come and join us. And with time, you're going to understand why we do what we do. Yeah?
We did have a couple points about that trust in suffering that we all see all around us, and that when suffering comes, we need to take the time to go deeper because we trust in His goodness, and we know that, and we can grow deeper in that in Schoenstatt, but we can ask the difficult questions of why this cancer, why this, or how do you want me to respond to this? And as we go deeper, we can ask more difficult questions. With time, we come to understand more. And that adults today, as well as we had the youth saying that the doubts that come are, like as Fabio explained too, they're fine, have the doubts. Move forward slowly with that. And like even some in our church, we have different viewpoints. And so one of the people shared that their friends are talking against the Pope. So they listen and they, get the opposite point of view, but then they take it to silence again and to God and let Him guide them into, and not just follow that group that doesn't like the Pope or that group that does, but we have to discern ourselves. And anxiety is in the air we breathe. So that again, we need to not be so self-reliant, not to think we have to solve everything right now, but again, to bring those things in silence to God, and He will help us. Of course, we have the wonderful example of Father Kentenich, who showed us no fear, no worry, no anxiety, no negativity, no complaining, all the while he was Dachau, all the while in his exile. What else could we ask for as far as, a model? And of course, our Blessed Mother was the same. But of course, we have to take the time to integrate that. And that's where, like you said, it takes time. And God's okay with that. So I think that was it.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Great information. Next group, what do we have? 6, right? 6. This is group 6. No, I think that was 5.
Thank you. All right, so our groups, I'm Sarah. I'm from Madison, Wisconsin. And thanks. My group started by talking about how incredible it was to hear the speech given in person and how there had been a lot of stuff going on over Zoom, but it was lovely to be able to be in person and have that, it almost felt like we were getting to know each other and having that personal connection. We also very much enjoyed having those 10 points very laid out in a way that we could understand, and yet there was so much more that we could dive into. One member of our discussion talked about how if he was wondering what he should do with his men's group, and he was like, oh, I have 10 points, 10 talks, the year's all good, I know what to do. So we thought that was amazing. We also really enjoyed how we had been given kind of the elevator talk, or a pitch of what does Schoenstatt have to offer the church? Now, oftentimes there are so many different groups within the Catholic Church, and it's hard to be okay, what does Schoenstatt actually give? What does Schoenstatt provide? And we love to hear about that. And we talked a lot about hope and how hope has to work within the church, and especially within our spirituality as Schoenstatters, having that childlike faith, and how the laity can change the church. That we have hope in our own ability to contribute and our own ability to build up the church through the Blessed Mother as instruments. And we loved the impression of the USA, specifically how productivity had gone out of control. That we need to bring those things that we see as good and true within our culture might need to be brought back a little bit. That it was a good calling out moment to be oh wait, I am doing that. I do need to fix that. And then we spent a lot of time talking about the bell. We loved the bell. We loved how it was not losing your individuality when you come together, and that we retain ourselves fully even when we're mixed together. So it's not like you see the carrot over there and there's the piece of beef and then you got the broccoli or whatever you put in your soup. That we are all still ourselves in that individuality. And then somebody brought up how Father Kentenich also related this to the Liberty Bell, which we thought was pretty cool, except our bell won't crack. And we talked about the harmony and different pitches that this bell provides, that we need, especially stressing that individuality. We talked about polyphony and how in that polyphony, all these different voices come together to create such beauty. Again, we went back to unity, especially how unity within the church is so integral to who we are, especially with various Protestant denominations. Our difference is that there are thousands of them, and then there's one of us, that we have that unity that binds us, especially within the Eucharist, Mary, and the Holy Father, that we must delexit ecclesiam, we must love the church. And again, a little hope in that the church will never fall. Like the gates of heaven shall not prevail against it, that we have that hope in that unity, trusting in the church. I believe, yes, and we talked a little bit about obedience to Christ equals obedience to the church, tying back to that call for unity, call to trust and have that hope. And then this is a little thing, we didn't quite talk about it in our group, but I think it's kind of cool. A lot of something that we've been talking about in the girls' youth right now is that the church, like people need Schoenstatt. Schoenstatt doesn't need people. So to have that faith that like, we don't need to try to force Schoenstatt to be like, Schoenstatt's dying, oh no. But just know that like, if we allow ourselves to be instruments, we can have that faith and that trust that Mary will use us and help the church grow how it needs to grow.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. And our last group, 7. We have our cheerleaders. A lot of good information has been shared by all the groups, so that's wonderful.
Hello, I'm Jennifer. I'm here with the Austin Movement. Woo! And I'm repping Group 7. So we first just started kind of sharing things that stuck out to us from Father's talk. Just the transactional relationships that have sort of come up about in the world of just listening to people, but discarding their person, their human value, and just anything that they could have to offer to us. So just really being humble in our interactions to truly encounter people. Appreciating the uniqueness of the US. I think myself coming back from World Youth Day, I questioned like, what is my American identity? I think like I come from a family of immigrants. I wonder like what is it to be American? Very quickly found that out when I met like the Chileans and the Spaniards. But it was so beautiful to experience that the diversity of America is part of our identity. So just knowing we're not a melting pot in the midst of that diversity, we are still bound together by the covenant of love and very much unique in our identities. Yeah, and then a quote that we pulled from the text, life can only be mastered and elevated by life. So that began this conversation in our group of the generational responsibility that we have in the church to carry things forward, to care for the youth and all that. So how do we unite ourselves as Schoenstatt to the church and to the world? Like that's kind of a big question to ask. But it seems like right now with the Sursum Corda, the focus is on the heart, to encounter the heart. That's something we kind of went into. We really appreciated Father bringing up the, okay, let's ask questions, let's doubt. We kind of dug a little deeper into that. We're like, okay, we're asking questions. We're not picking the church apart. We're not pointing fingers. We're not picking sides, as was mentioned earlier, but we're actively struggling. We're actively seeking those answers. You don't just ask a question and walk away. You don't find a point of tension and decide, I can't be Catholic anymore. And I think that's really hard in our youth right now. If you can't fully stand with something, you're afraid. So you just walk away. We really need to be uncomfortable, to not fear discomfort, and to actively struggle. I think struggling and sacrifice and suffering. We fear suffering and think in the world. So that's just something we can work on. Thinking back on the change in the numbers that Father Cristobal had mentioned from when Father K was here to now, like having reduced the number of Christians across the US and Catholics. Some members of our group thought, like that's our responsibility. It's our responsibility to pass on like this message and to care for the youth and to desire for people to be here. And we do that through sharing our testimony. Do not be afraid to put yourself out there with someone, whether that's in your workspace, in an Uber with your driver, like whatever that is, to just, to share like, I'm Catholic and this is like where I see the Lord in my day to day, and just share that with other people. Some people have never heard that. Some people are seeking answers. I don't think the world chooses not to be saved. I think they don't know like what that means. So we just need to give them a little hand. And that's kind of our responsibility as Christians. And then lastly, I really appreciate it from my group was just their intentionality of caring for the youth as a youth. I think that is also important. So yeah, that's what we talked about.
Thank
Thank you
Well
so
done
much.
from everyone. I can see Sorsum Cordas really working as we lift up our Heart Students Convention by what was shared by all the groups and within each group. Just a couple of more little announcements before we break for lunch. First of all, we want to remind everyone and encourage you as well to begin working on your elevator speech assignment that was given to you last evening. Also, as you do so, we want you to think about the value of the umbrella statement, Susum Corda. It has helped us to remain high-minded in the midst of so many changes in our culture and so much contradiction. And of course, we'll hear more about all this topic this afternoon. Right now, we're going to go ahead and get ready for our meal prayer, and then we break for lunch. And we'll resume back at 1:30 this afternoon.
Again, thank you to all of those that spoke to us and shared what you shared in your groups. It was beautiful information. I strongly believe the listening is so important, listening to each other, because sometimes there's a lot of miscommunication, and learning and not being afraid to ask questions again, because I, for one, know that example, the covenant of love, when it was first introduced, it took me a while to completely understand it. And there's nothing wrong with asking questions, or it's like when you're in the classroom, your teacher tells you about something one time, but the fifth time you hear it, the light bulb goes off, and that happens with Schoenstatt as we're learning and growing and becoming the light for others and being those instruments, and that you are as leaders in your area. We thank you for all of that. I am now going to say the prayer for the meal so that we can break. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for your love and for the many good things you have given to our Schoenstatt leaders. Help us to show our gratitude by loving each other as you love us. Give us patience and understanding to bear with one another, generosity to share our joys and sorrows, and honestly to admit our faults and correct them. We entrust our Schoenstatt leaders to your fatherly care and protection. We ask you to bless this food for our nourishment, and bless, O Lord, the hands that prepared it. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. We will see everyone after lunch. Thank you.